Gentlemen, welcome along to another episode of EOTT, Everything on the Table, with me, Jimmy James. As you can see, I'm outside again in lovely Swindon. We did have a bit of noise interference last time, so I shall be sure to keep the microphone muted when it's on me. But as I said, we've got a lovely treat for us today, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Mark Steele has been kind enough to come along and have a chat with us. Mark, how are you, brother?
I'm very good at the minute, you know, as long as we can just keep getting the information out, the truth information out. That's what's really important, because there's a lot of very, very devious, dark information kicking around in relation to this 5G, and that needs to be dispelled. And what we most certainly have to do is go on the offensive against the state-sponsored trolls that are trying to shut down the information, the real information about 5G and the genocide. That's what's really important. Councillor there today at Bristol, these people need to be harangued. They need to be, you know, contacted by as many people as possible. I rang the chap this morning. He's put an article in the Bristol News saying that anybody talking about 5G is a conspiracy theorist. It's all overblown. It's all the same state-sponsored narrative. You know, you get it, the conspiracy theorist narrative, absolute garbage. The man is a criminal. I'll actually say that. He's a criminal. And the reason he's a criminal, it's the covering up of genocide. That's what 5G is. 5G is a battlefield weapon system. It's here to kill. It's not here for your mobile phones. That's just the mainstream narrative. It is a masquerade. Anybody that says it's for mobile communications, it's a masquerade. It's the reason why Apple have just announced they're not doing a 5G phone. They're not doing a 5G phone because the 5G test phones that Samsung produced were bursting into flames. There was that much energy from the transmitters entering the phone, was setting them on fire. Now, can you imagine that energy traveling through your head? Because these aren't lasers. These are on the sub-gigahertz to travel directly through your head, through your body, through the wall. If that's sub-gigahertz, I can travel through brickwork, concrete, and I can travel through you like a knife through butter. They cause brain injury. They cause bleeding on the brain. They increase your blood pressure. So you can imagine you're going to see a significant number of strokes anywhere where they roll 5G out. In fact, we've had in the gated area since the rollout in 2014, this is numbers from 2014 to 2016, we had a 23% increase in stroke. That's what 5G is.
Well, the thing is, Mark, as you were just saying there, it's all about getting the correct information out there. And as we know, every day is a school day, right? You know, nobody has all the information and all the knowledge. What I'm finding lately is I discovered your kind of information, well, easily 2 years ago now, I think, coming on to, if not a little bit more. And it's been an ongoing kind of campaign to raise awareness of the information. But what I'm finding is people on the ground who I know, who I respect and whose research I respect, are saying, no, it's all incorrect. It's all been overhyped and this, that, and the other, which, as you say, I think is people perhaps parroting some of the mainstream narrative or perhaps the mainstream trolls. Tell us, if you would, please, Mark, what qualifies you to make these statements? You know, you say you're a weapons expert and all this other stuff. Can you just give us a little bit of background, please, brother, into your history and, you know, what qualifies you to tell us about the information, please?
Well, I was in material sciences and I ended up at a secret nuclear facility where there was a weapons facility, and we worked with very high RF equipment. Now, I can't tell you about that because it's covered under the Official Secrets Act. After that, I developed a number of weapons testing pieces of equipment. So I understood that some of these non-ionizing radiation signals were not, as you'll find a number of scientists will tell you, there's not enough energy in that part of the spectrum. What I see to dispel that is I asked a simple question: how does a laser, which is a non-ionizing radiation spectrum, it's basically light, how does a laser cut stainless steel? You can't cut stainless steel with oxyacetylene torch. Pretty hard stuff, I can tell you. It can cut stainless steel. So it dispels the whole misinformation, the scientific misinformation. I mean, I get idiots all the time. I call them idiots. These are people that have certificates on the wall to tell you they're a professor or a doctor. And I'll tell you another thing. Anybody that comes to any of these shows and talks about their certificates and their qualifications, they're usually mentally retarded. It's an embarrassment. They're an embarrassment to the scientific community. My background started in material sciences. I worked at a secret weapons facility for a number of years. I then went on in the oil and gas industry, and I got involved in actually interrogating well forms, and I got involved with a project called TubeFuse. It was one of Shell's large technology players about carbon dioxide capture and storage. It was a fraud. The whole thing was a total con. So the whole CO2 thing, because obviously I was at a very, very high level, and I got involved in a number of discussions about CO2. The whole thing's a scam, right? And what happened, because that was a scam, I've always been interested in, you know, other things, but I'm an inventor. So I've got a number of products. I invented a carbon cracking reactor. We tested it at a laboratory in one of the universities in Scotland. The feasibility study worked. I patented it. We could not raise the finance at anywhere to actually make this CO2. It disassociates the CO2 bond, and consequently, I knew that they're not interested in dissociating CO2. What they're going to use it for is some mythical climate change nonsense. You know, your XR rebellion, supported by the international banking community, and that's why they're on the BBC every 5 minutes. It's a total fraud, and what they're doing, they're playing on people's emotions. They're playing on people's emotions because they have an agenda. It's the UN Resilient Cities agenda, and it's to zero carbon emissions. Well, unfortunately for zero carbon emissions, humans breathe out carbon. If they want to have a zero carbon emission, it means that they're going to get rid of you. And obviously, when you look at 5G, go back to my patents. I've patented a number of head-up display systems for the battle space because I knew about the microwave radiation weaponry, laser weaponry from the battlefield, like LiDAR. The LiDAR they're putting on top of the autonomous cars, the battlefield weapon system. Right? It's not, well, it comes in two guises. Obviously, it's for battlefield interrogation. It does a very good job at battlefield interrogation. But if you're sitting up a hill with a pair of binoculars or a telescopic sight, and you're looking at a tank with a LiDAR system, and that LiDAR catches that binocular or that telescope, you increase the focus of the laser, and it'll blind you. It's actually an illegal weapon. You get away with it on the battlefield by saying it's for battlefield interrogation, which it is. It has a genuine purpose as a battlefield interrogation piece of equipment. However, if you were foolish enough to look at that tank using a pair of binoculars, you'd be in serious trouble. So that begs the question, why are the Department of Transport allowing vehicles on the road as we speak using LiDAR? You've got 3 mirrors in your car that are directed at your eyes. If somebody comes up behind you with a LiDAR system, those mirrors in that vehicle catch that laser light and will direct it at your eyes. You'll get eye injuries. These technologies haven't been tested to be used on the road. Neither have the radar systems. In the tests that have been made, they're pretty toxic. Radar's toxic, microwave radiation's toxic. All these signal systems in this part of the spectrum, the non-ionizing radiation part of the spectrum, are being shown in tens of thousands of published, peer-reviewed, uncontested. And what I'm going to say to people, when I talk about, published, peer-reviewed papers, these are papers that have been reviewed by other scientists within a specific field, and they haven't been able to find anything to either have those papers withdrawn, and they haven't been able to bring any science to the table to actually have them discredited. I mean, I had a lunatic from Ulster University the other day, a lunatic. I like to call them exactly what they are. These are the people who, they get the certificates, they hang them on the wall, and spend a lot of time polishing them. And this guy's telling me, right, that there's no evidence to show that non-ionizing radiation, because obviously it's not powerful enough. I then ask him, I said, well, if that's the case, I says, can you explain to me, how does a laser cut stainless steel? He's like, oh, well, I mean, my colleagues, it's the World Health Organization. I mean, this is the type of clowns, because he knew he knows, anybody in a university knows that that statement is incorrect. In its natural form, maybe, but I'll tell you what, I'll tie you out in the sun on a beach in Spain for a day, bare skin, and you'll die. That's non-ionizing radiation. And that's immersive non-ionizing radiation, not man-made pulse modulated radiation. The pulsing of the radiation is what makes it extremely dangerous to cells. That's what makes them really dangerous. All right. So man-made pulse modulated radiation, depending on the type of waveform, can be absolutely toxic. Not just toxic, can be lethal. In fact, there was a 2.5 gig, 4 gig weapon system that was used against the US embassy in Moscow and killed 3 ambassadors. It's the same microwave radiation weapons that were used in Cuba that caused brain injury, and the same weapon system that was used in the Chinese embassy and caused brain injury, because that's what microwave radiation is capable of doing. Basic physics, it's the focusing of a signal in air. That's what 5G is. That's the difference between 5G and 4G. Its main technical parameter is the antenna design. And the antenna design allows you to focus the signal. So instead of the signal traveling away from the antenna, depending on the antenna design, away from the antenna, it's called inverse square law, where the radiation drops off significantly over distance. What a 5G antenna does, it focuses it. And when it focuses that energy at about 20 electron volts, right, I can ionize, so I can knock an ion off, so I can actually cause an energy beam that would be lethal to a human. I can punch a hole in them. So consequently, this whole narrative for the non-ionizing radiation spectrum is garbage. I've known about that for a number of years because obviously I've invented a number of mitigating products for the battlefield to mitigate the weapon systems, these sophisticated weapon systems on the battlefield. For instance, LiDAR. So LiDAR on an opponent's tank or on another type of weapons platform, I developed head-up display screens to protect our troops and other troops' eyes. If you look at any of the special forces, you see the pictures when they're in a forward operating base and they've all got these glasses on. There's a reason for it. It's to protect their eyes from the microwave radiation systems or LiDAR systems, because obviously what you don't want to do is blind your best troops. So they wear protective eyewear to protect them. I wear it all the time because microwave radiation enters the eye and it is extremely toxic. It's toxic to your central nervous system. Consequently, I always wear protective eyewear. That's why people say, why do you always wear? Because I'm on a screen. There's a weapon system called Assassin. It's a pulse modulated weapon that was developed by the CIA, and you can pulse modulate that screen, that LED screen, and it can make me pretty sick. So obviously I wear protective eyewear. So obviously I've got a number of patents, and those patents have to be able to be used on the battlefield. So I understand the offensive weapons programs very, very well. And obviously you can imagine I got pretty exercised when my local authority put a transmitter on a street light. And after quite a bit of investigation, a number of neighbours knocking on the door, bleeding from the nose, children bleeding from the nose, people getting skin problems, breathing problems, measured the radiation in their bedrooms significantly higher than what the law says is safe. So we're talking minimums of 600 millivolts up to 4,000 millivolts. I mean, I had one guy in particular, a taxi driver, he had 3,500 millivolts in his bedroom, and his LED TV was actually flickering. There was that much energy coming into the home from the transmitter on the street light that was making his TV flicker. So I measured the radiation in his home, and I've measured radiation in a number of people. So in fact, a number of people who've since died. David Smails, whose wife developed a brain cancer, very aggressive brain cancer, and died in only a very short period of time. He was part of my court case as a witness, as a victim witness statement. Just before the trial, This was where Gated Council took me to court to try and gag me. Just before the trial, David actually passed away. He died of a massive heart attack, because obviously this also causes heart damage, ventricle damage, microwave radiation, because it passes through you, unlike light radiation, which can't travel very deeply under the skin. Microwave radiation can, certain frequencies, travel quite easily through your skin. Consequently, it damages cells. It's a bit like how, you know, you put your bit of meat in the microwave oven, heat from the inside out. Well, that's what microwaves do. Microwaves travel through the meat. I mean, you could fire as many layers as you want. You burn them on the outside, but you wouldn't burn it internally. Well, microwave radiation actually passes through the meat, and it actually causes a vibration in the water molecule, and that's what causes the thermal temperature increase, and that's what cooks your meat. Not very good for you, by the way, but you know, that's up to people. If they want to eat food out of a microwave, crack on, buy yourself an electric car while you're on, and a smartwatch. Get yourself a smart TV. There's also the issue that we've got with smart is secret militarized armaments and residential technology. The more smart equipment you take into your home, not only are you poisoning yourself and your children, you're also harming your neighbours. So the smart meter that's 5 or 6 streets away has an impact on you. So any fool, any ignorant fool fitting a smart meter, believe us, they're harming you. It's not to be in your home. These transmitters have got massive range. They've got.
This is it. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, with regards to the smart meter, I'll just jump in quickly because I recently moved into a flat. 9 flats. On the entrance, you've got 9 residential mailboxes one side and a bank of 9 electricity meters and 9 gas meters. Mine was the only smart one from the previous tenant. He wasn't really too cleared up on the issues. It's not his fault. On a positive note, SSE asked no questions. I said, yeah, I want it removed. No problem. Because, as you say there, the onus was on me. My wireless detector was able to pick up a signal from the end of my living room, but from the other end of the living room, you couldn't. And in the bedroom, I was probably quite fine. But yet my meter is attached to the back wall of someone's bloody living room, you know? With regards to the smart cars, I've got a couple of friends who were recently going to purchase a brand new vehicle. They were going to go for maybe a Tesla or something of that type. And it was only by synchronicity that one of their friends had put up some information showing the tests being done inside these electrical vehicles and the massive amounts of electrical interference whilst inside them. Now, for anyone who's come into our information, this conversation, and they're new to your journey, your story, and everything you're talking about, they might be forgiven for thinking that we're spouting a bit of fear porn here, but unfortunately, that's not the situation. It's not about fear porn. It's about the reality of where you found yourself and the journey you've been on. So there's been a few, when I've been looking through your work, Mark, and kind of catching up to see where you've been at, because as I said, I've been following you for quite a little while. There's a few things that have popped up which I think are quite telling with regards to the situation, which I'm going, oh, hang on a minute, it makes you question things twice. So, for example, can you tell us a little bit about, someone asked me to ask you a specific question, but you actually mentioned it in a video, but I will rehash it. The fact, first of all, Lloyds of London, no longer willing to insure schools for kids with Wi-Fi in their schools. Which countries are we finding now that are banning it, outright saying, I know Denmark was mentioned recently, I know Israel, perhaps I think France are in this, is it perhaps Switzerland, Sweden? These are kind of the high player countries, as I like to call them. These are the centralized, control hubs, if you want to call it that, and what have you. Give us a little bit of background on what you found on those little comments I made there, if you would, please, Mark.
Well, first and foremost, you cannot believe anything, absolutely anything you see in the mainstream media. My believers, it is totally false and it's deceptive. It's a bit like the millimeter waves for 5G. 5G blanket coverage is sub-gigahertz. It's urban radar, long-range urban radar, not the millimeter waves that everybody talks about. Anybody starts talking about millimeter waves, I haven't seen any. I've never measured any. And also, I've never seen any equipment yet that actually produces it. I'm not saying that there won't, but I'll tell you now, the 5G and the blanket coverage will kill you before you ever get to the millimeter waves. We've probably got about 3 years.
Well, they're already working on 6G and 7G for what I'm seeing with reports. Again, you know, mainstream media, as you say, go on. Yeah.
That's just a smoke screen. You're never going to get
I think so.
You're not even going to get a 5G phone. The 5G test phone that Samsung all bursting into flames. They know the energy levels from these transmitters. It is ignorance. I'll put that into perspective. There's a recent study being done by in the US here where the smartphones are emitting over 500% increase in a 1.6 watts per kilo. That's the US. It's a thermal value, not safe, but that's the law. It's a standard. It's the FCC standard for the emissions from a mobile phone transmitter. 1.6 watts per kilo thermal value, pretty toxic, not very safe. You really have to keep it off your head. Well, all the smartphones that have been tested independently are 500% over that. Now, what I'm going to tell people, I'm a product developer, that is impossible. It is impossible to make a product that fails a standard because you've got to test them to the standard before they go on sale. Now, this class action that's going on in America now, where women have developed ovarian cancer, bowel cancers, cervical cancers, because obviously you keep the phones in your pocket, breast cancers, men getting breast cancer, people getting head cancers from them, and testicular cancers, prostate cancers. We know this radiation is toxic. It is biologically toxic, fact. There is no science that says otherwise, unless it's been done by one of the telecoms companies or funded by one of the telecoms companies. In fact, Motorola paid for some research to be done quite a number of years ago, and the scientist, he ended up threatening him because his science that he was producing showed that the phones were toxic, biologically toxic. And obviously he fell out with him over that. Not the only one. I know of scientists who have actually had their funding pulled, universities where they've thrown them out of tenure and thrown them out of universities and stopped their funding because they are showing that these microwave radiation signals are toxic. And obviously the controller, he wants to kill a large swathe of the population. In fact, he doesn't want to kill a large swathe. He wants to kill every biological thing on this planet. People will say to me, that's impossible. What I'm going to tell you, the densification and the plan for 5G, smart city, resilient city, it is to kill all biological life. You only have to look outside your bedroom window and you'll see very few small birds. We don't have any. I do videos on this. There isn't any. You see the damage to the trees and the leaves and the, you know, the flora and fauna, but you also we're starting to see significant collapse in the population. Older people dying more quickly, children dying more quickly, and children in schools exposed to Wi-Fi are being sterilized. This is real. This isn't made up. I'm not making this up. I get sick and tired of government-backed agents and trolls. They'll say, he's a gatekeeper. I'm the gatekeeper that's telling you your government's trying to kill you. That's how much of a gatekeeper I am. I'm the gatekeeper that ended up in court 5 times for threatening councillors, got dragged into court where they tried to gag us, and some idiot turned around and said, oh, he's a gatekeeper. So the government gave me an international platform because it was the first 5G trial in the world because I tried to stop the information getting out. Now, the same trolls, the same, what I call the trolls, they have now been running a number of events around the country because obviously I've got a few talks planned, Wales in particular. The two event places in Wales, they've now cancelled the talks because they've been threatened. They've been threatened by these trolls. Now, these are the trolls that are saying to people, he's over-egging it. He's not good for the 5G community. He's overstating it with the facts and all the rest of it. Listen, I'm the leading expert in the world on 5G. Fact. I'm not blowing my own trumpet. And the reason for that, I invent products to mitigate these weapons on the battlefield. That's why I know more about them than just about everybody else on the planet. And I don't care if people don't like what I've got to say. It is the truth. A lot of people don't like the truth because they haven't got the stomach for it. So they'd rather try and discredit me They'd rather try and discredit me and run from the truth because I've got a little bit of yellow down that back. Unfortunately for them, I'm an offensive weapons systems expert. I've got no yellow in it. So it's not very good for them, right? Now, I'm not saying that some of the things I tell people doesn't frighten people. It does. However, there's no point being frightened. They're setting out to murder you.
What I'd like to come in there, Mark, thank you very much, Mark. What I'd like to come into there is previous episodes discussing, you know, the people that I've spoken to have been quite diverse fields, but as I said, I like to be on the cutting edge. So things like this, it's very important to raise awareness of it. And as you say, well, as I say, is it's about unity. It's about getting us all together. Things like this, as you well know, very divisive. And, you know, I'm not going to call people yellow bellies and all the rest of it. And, you know, you've been on your own journey, so you're a bit more, you've had a bit more stick and a bit more trouble, and perhaps I'll have a bit to come my way in the future. But the point being is,
I said it the other day. There was a scientist. She said to me, she said, "You're very offensive." I said, "Well, I know I am."
Sometimes you have to be, and it's not about being offensive as such, but it's about just saying it as it is. And it is a bit much for some people, but there are a lot of people who are ready to share it. There's a lot of people who will already be familiar with it, and this is why I'd like to keep an ongoing narrative with people like yourself, where we can catch up. Every cold man says we're all just walking each other home, Mark. You know, nobody's woke. This woke is bollocks. Pardon my French. This woke is bullshit. It's ego-based nonsense. It's about this spectrum of awakening, and we're all on different kind of different points on the spectrum. And with regards to now, what I want to get to is there are lots of people working on the ground in different spectrums, different arenas. So, for example, I know you were having a conversation with David Robinson through some comments the other day, and I've spoken to David the other day. He had good things to say about you, and he was saying about, you know, by bringing these different networks together. So with regards to them, for example, you say, you know, Extinction Rebellion, they've hoodwinked a lot of people, unfortunately. It's how it seems. I don't want to cast aspersions on people, but that is how it seems to be to me, from what I've looked at and from what people have shown me. These are good people. These are the kind of people who, whilst they might not be fully into the dark depths of, you know, where we're really at, which is quite unpleasant, to be fair, on a lower level of that, or a kind of different level, where people are actually getting out and actioning and putting people on notice for other issues, if you want to call them issues. If people start collaborating a lot more, we get a lot more collaboration with regards to like the common law courts. We can put these people on notice, and not only put them on notice for 5G, we put them on notice for all the different things that they're doing. You know, the common law stuff can come in. There's so many different facets, Mark, and this is my thing. I want to speak to everyone, get all the different facets all out on one table together, so people can just come and go, right, what the hell's going on here? As you say, when we start getting together a bit more and get a bit more structure, I mentioned it earlier briefly, I'll mention it again. The common law court situation, and I've not actually had a good chat with anyone who's fully on the ground with it as of yet. I do have a kind of understanding about it. Is they're essentially doing what we are entitled to do as sovereign individuals on the ground, is to set up these common law courts, call people to account for their actions as individuals working against us, the collective, and make rulings. You know, it's all quite legitimate, it's all quite, you know, professional and all the rest of it. The only problem is, doesn't really have any teeth, does it? You know, this common law situation, as David Robinson put it. But what I have found in the last couple of days is there is apparently a gentleman called Anthony Stansfeld, Thames Valley Precinct Crime Commissioner, who heads near enough 4,500 cops, who's, from what I'm hearing, is saying we're gonna action these rulings, and when these common law rulings are, because it's is it antecedent, I believe is the word, it comes above and beyond any of statutes, acts and statutes. These are all below. Common law is the foundation. Natural law, common law, this is the foundation. If we've got somebody like that who's actually saying, like, talk is cheap at the end of the day, you know, the proof is in the pudding, as they say, but, you know, they're not casting aspersions by any stretch. What I'm saying is I've only found out this week that there is a fella who's in the police, he's contacted the chief commissioner saying, look, this is what's going on. These people need to be held to account. And that was regards to vaccinations, vaccine damage, and all that kind of thing. It's exactly the same thing, but just in a different arena. Are you seeing the same kind of thing on the ground, Mark?
The great thing, there's a number of people in the establishment. I'm going to dispel a few misnomers in relation to the law. Right?
Please do, yeah.
The law is based on the British Constitution. The British Constitution is based on the common law and God's law. All right. So the Crown swear an oath to God to protect the citizen, etc. Now, there's been a lot of that oath that's been thrown in the bin. So I understand people talking about common law. However, no authority has the right to commit genocide on the citizen or mankind. They can't do it. In fact, the law, the Act of Parliament 2012 Social Care Act, the Secretary of State has a duty of care to protect the population from ionising and non-ionising radiation. Well, and so do local authorities. They must, this is a duty in law, this is their law. So we're not talking about common law here, we're talking about their Acts of Parliament. They have broken those laws. The LED street light is a 450 nanometers frequency. It is toxic. It's retinal cell toxic. Retinal cell toxic. It will kill you. It's only been in Barcelona for less than 3 years. It's double the breast and the prostate cancer. It causes cellular death and harm. So those LED street lights that are rolling out on top of you, they are completely experimental, in breach of the Nuremberg Code. They're in breach of the 2012 Social Care Act. So they've broken their law. And what we have to do is take them into their courts and fight them on their ground using their law. And let's see what happens. Because I'm pretty confident that there's not a judge in this country, no matter how corrupt he is, he's going to wade through genocide, because I can prove in my skeleton argument in the case I went against Gated Council, I could show that the weapon system, this high gain target acquiring weapon system that had been fitted in Gated was in fact 5G, as was recognised by the judge. That's why he told Gated Council they must debate the 5G risk, because that's what they had, 5G. We proved that in the court. And unfortunately, Gated Council have decided I haven't got 5G. They've just made a decision. Every time we've asked who has told you I haven't got 5G, either get the phone put down. It's just the council, because there's no individual. As soon as you try and put your hands on an individual for the misinformation, because obviously that type of misinformation in relation to genocide carries with it a life sentence. So consequently, nobody, you can't get a name. Now, the reason why you can't get a name is because they know that they're lying. They know that they're fabricating the evidence, but it's coming from the top. It's coming from the controller. So the controller's saying, just carry on. Don't rock the boat, otherwise you're out. Well, I'm going to tell you how out they are. There's two paths to the road that we're on. One, go with a controller and die. Two, join the resistance and live. Because I'm going to tell you, anybody following the BBC narrative, anybody following the current, it's not 5G, it's not going to harm you, because somebody at Public Health England has said that it's safe, you're going to die. The people that will survive this are the people that will resist this. There is an agenda to mass murder 6 billion people on this planet. That's what the plan is. Now, can you imagine? I'm the gatekeeper, by the way. I'm the gatekeeper that's telling you they're going to kill 6 billion. I've got their numbers. The equipment and the power density of the equipment is here to kill. Those cooler boxes, you know, the towers with the little tube on the top.
I've seen all the different bits and bobs. Yeah, I've seen a lot of different.
Yeah, those cooler boxes are there for one reason. Now, I understand how some people, right, who are a little bit frightened of what I'm saying, right, and can get a bit upset and sort of get frightened by it. I'm not interested in gathering their support. Not interested. What I'm interested in is the 6%, the people who are like me, right, who want the snowflake type, who will get up, who will fight back, who will be part of the resistance. Because believers, we don't start resisting this crime against us, you'll die. That's why I've thrown all caution to the wind. I've had the threats. I've had threats at home. I mean, they've tried to jail us. They've tried to put us in prison twice. Failed miserably, but the reason they failed miserably because the evidence was so damning in the court. The judge, I mean, I'm in the Crown Court at Moot Hall, and the judge, I'm showing him a high-gain dielectric lens and a Jew. And I said, Your Honour, that's a Jew. He says, well, what's that, Mr. Steele? I said, well, that's what's called a direct energy weapon. I says, and this is paid for, gated council, target acquiring weapons system on the streetlights. I mean, you couldn't make it up. There was an alternative. There was no media there, none. The judge even turned around and said, where's the mainstream media? I mean, the court's chock-a-block with people. Where's the mainstream media? Not one arrived. And what we found out later, they hadn't listed the courts, they hadn't listed the case, the controllers, it deliberately not, because what they don't want is people looking historically into those court cases to see the documentary evidence that's being entered into the court to show that this is genocide being perpetrated against the people by the local authority. They don't want that being reviewed by a number of people. So when you go and try and search the cases, now, we didn't know that. What actually happened, some troll came up and said, oh, well, the court cases were totally false. Didn't happen because they're not listed. And I thought, that's quite interesting because we didn't even know that they hadn't been listed until it actually said. So when we started looking, sure enough, they hadn't been. Now, but who controls the trolls? Because whoever delisted those court cases informed the trolls about it, so they knew about it, and it shows that the trolls who are trolling, the information that we're putting out are state-sponsored. Because how would they know? How would they even bother go and look? And somebody's leading them by the nose and going, look, here, this is a nice little bit of information. I mean, I've not had so much garbage in all my life. We had near 150 people at the court case at the first trial, right? Good job. It hadn't been a closed court, because what would have happened, nobody would have seen it. It was actually covered by the mainstream media, the first case, but when we got the result that the council didn't expect, the council had already organised a judge to sit and preside over that case. When he read my skeleton argument, right, he bottled it, and we ended up with another judge, that's the recorder, Nolan QC. He gets up, and obviously, bit of a brutal type of character, not an easy character to play with, but after he realised that the council had fabricated the evidence against me, he said, I'm going to read his skeleton argument. After lunch, when he came back, he was incandescent because he doesn't want to die either. And that document, that skeleton argument, shows and proves genocide on the part of the council trying to kill. And obviously, I predicted this. I predicted a collapse in the flying pollinator population. I predicted a collapse in the birds. I haven't got a crystal ball. The reason I predicted it was because the levels of radiation that we're actually measuring in people's homes in Gateshead, and consequently what's happened, anybody wants to go and have a look at the Anthony Steele YouTube channel. I nicked that off a cousin, by the way, because obviously if I put Mark Steele on, Google will take it down because they don't want the information getting out either. So obviously we've got to be a little bit cleverer than the controllers. So I put that channel, put a few videos on that channel. I put one up the other day. I'm in a public park, not a single bird, not a butterfly, not a bee, not a wasp, not a bird. The trees are stressed, the bark's coming off the trees because this is experimental, and that's what I expected would happen. So that's what we're seeing. And what's really important to everybody that listens to this, join the resistance, start to act. I know the things I say, do your own research, watch the 5G Apocalypse documentary, Do your own research. Anybody needs any other information about the whys and the wherefores, Grundman weapon systems, it's in the public domain. You'll get enough from that to know that microwave radiation was used and has been used for a number of years as a battlefield weapon system. That's what 5G is.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. A few things I want to raise off the back of what you were just saying there. So the main thing is what they call the incredulity bias, which you've kind of again and again. It's so ridiculous that people just can't accept it. And I understand that, and I know you do too. With regards to, as you say, this, what I want to get onto, and we'll get onto it through this point I'm going to raise, is that I did freedom of information requests for the local council here in Swindon and my family's local council back in Tydfil. Complete blanket response. No, we've no plans. There's nothing going on. There's no discussions. Meanwhile, you know, the Welsh government are advertising on Google about these big seminars they have in planning 5G rollouts and whatnot. So I'm like, well, someone's lying. So I'm like, right, who filled out this freedom of information request? The response. Who did this response? Because I want to know who the person is, the actual human being. Oh, the IT department. Yeah, the IT department is not an individual's name. Who is the person, if you'd please be kind enough? Don't make me go on LinkedIn and find out who the head of the IT department is from the Tydfil Council, because if I have to, I will. But it's easier if you just do it. Let's just keep it civil. And eventually, they got back to me with the guy's name. And I've not really followed it up since. I'm like, well, I've got his name. I know who the guy is. I know he's obviously under instruction. We know how it works. It's a pyramid. And as they say, forgive my French, shit rolls downhill. People are following instructions. Perhaps they're being paid off. Who knows? There's all these different kind of things going on. Or perhaps they've been, what's the word, incriminated or...
Photographs of little kids.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's always been the biggest controller of these people within these organisations. They've got a penchant for young children.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's one of the reasons why they went after the paedophile hunters. The paedophile hunters were catching magistrates, councillors, you name it. That's just the type of people that go for those type of positions. You know,
yes.
Like what it is, it's a smoke screen. They like to tell other people off. You know, I'll tell them what to do. And then you find out, I mean, there was a guy locally to us. He was part of this, you know, the Crime Watch group. He was the local coordinator for Crime Watch. He'd only been messing about with children for about 20 years. Do you know what I mean? It goes with, it's like scoutmasters, you know, I'm an upstanding person in the community and I'm fiddling with the kids. Priests, the whole, you know, it goes with it. It goes with the territory of people who want to step up and be in charge. See, that's the issue. I got forced into this. I didn't want to have this at all. I got forced into it because of what was happening to my community, to the people in my community, where they were being assaulted. And obviously, I knew these weapon systems. So unfortunately, I got this put on my shoulders. Fortunately for the people that are out there, I've always had pretty broad shoulders. And I've always been to accept that the world isn't exactly what everybody thinks it is. In fact, it's a lot more strange than what most people can use their imaginations about. I've got a big imagination because obviously I'm an inventor. So I can soon see pretty quickly what's going on. I mean, I only have to look at a bit of hardware. It's like the hardware that's in the streetlights. They've got a 3,300 watt relay and a 450 volt capacitor. Well, what do you need one of them to switch a LED street light on or not? I mean, it's absolutely, I can scan your home with a 12 volt scanner. So why they put a 450 capacitor on a board, on a high voltage board, on with a target acquiring weapon system, a dielectric lens to focus a signal at something in a street light? We've got 31,875 in a small village, a small borough, Gateshead. That tells you what it is. I mean, I know what it is, but it should, you know, anybody that does any research quite quickly. In fact, I talked to an electronics expert today. Obviously, on the other side of it as well, I've got a lot of whistleblowers who keep calling us up and going, oh, by the way, Mark, you know what that is? And I'm going, yeah, I know what it is. So I get a bit of confirmation there as well. In fact, I did a talk in Gateshead. Finishes the talk, I had a load of Q&A because I love to do Q&A with people because it helps them to understand what we're talking about. And at the end of the Q&A, there was a guy popped up and he said, I want to sort of say something about this whole thing. Like, I thought, oh, yeah, I would go. Typically, you could see he was out the army. He said, I've been in special forces for 20 years, blah, 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 blah. And he said, and I thought, oh, yeah, we go. We're going to get a prominent, have a proper argument. And he went, I just want to confirm everything that Mark Steele said yet tonight is absolutely correct. We've used these weapon systems to assassinate people outside of the judicial system, he said, outside of the UK. So I was expecting a complete opposite.
Ah, that's good. It's good. It's nice when you have that bit of confirmation, especially from someone on the ground, isn't it?
Going back to I did a talk in Liverpool, and there was a guy there, interesting guy, clever person, and he said, look, he said, you know, I've listened to you for an hour. He said, you know, but he said, Mark, he said, this is all conspiracy. There was an argument ensued, because obviously it's not, it's all technical and scientifically backed up. I've got 30 years in a scientific background to actually be able to substantiate the things that I'm saying. I do shoot from the hip, but you've got to remember, I've got 30 years experience. And so anyway, I'm showing all this technical stuff on the board and doing this presentation. And he goes, well, it's all conspiracy. And there was an argument ensues in the room. And I went, whoa, hang on a minute, hang on. I said, the man's asked a question. I want to answer it. I want to answer that question. I said, when I started the talk, I did say to you, do not believe a single word that I said. All right? Not a single word I say. I want you to do your own research. And the reason for that, it's called cognitive dissonance. I said, I'm a weapons expert and have been in this game for over 30 years as an inventor, as a product development guy, and producing things to put into the marketplace. I said, and I can't believe what I'm telling you. So I said, why I would expect anybody to come into this room and listen to me for an hour, showing him some images and some technicalities and some science to believe it. I said, I cannot believe it. I said, but it doesn't stop it being true. And he came across later on and he said, that was really, really powerful. I said, but it's only powerful because it's true. I says, I can't believe what's going on. I says, so I'm not expecting anybody to believe anything I say. That's why I say to you, literally, do your own research. Do your own research into 5G. It's all there. There's enough of scientific, documentary bits of paper, published, peer-reviewed, uncontested papers around the world to see that this is, in fact, a weapon. And how I'm going to explain to people why it's a weapon. It is the focus signals, like a laser. If our focus collimated, they're called masers, if our focus of microwave radiation signal is a beam, that's how I weaponize it. And that's the difference between 5G and 4G. And it is the antenna design. Now, here's an interesting thing. Theresa May wants to get the antennas from China. Amazing, isn't it? She doesn't want the Chinese to have anything with a 5G, but she wants to buy the antennas from China. Interesting. The reason they need the antennas from China, they would fail in manufacture any testing that had to be done here. So they'd have to come in from China with a little certificate on to say that they'd passed a test. Well, the reason why they don't pass a test is because it's a weapon system. The reason why it was never tested in researched and tested in the first place, because it's a weapon system, because it's like me going, I've just made a bayonet, right? And it's perfectly safe, right, for children of 10-year-old to play with, right? If you stick it in them, it'll not stick in them. That's what 5G is, and that's why it wasn't tested, because it'll fail. It fails the test. When I spoke at the Democratic Veterans Conference last year, I explained this about 5G, how it can't pass the test because it's a weapon. The design of it is weaponized. That's why it doesn't pass a test. That's why they've never tested it. They can't test it because it'll fail. Simple, not complicated. I'm not making it up. There is no research to show that 5G is safe because it couldn't be tested, because it'll fail. It's like the LED streetlights. They'll fail. They haven't tested them. What they've done, they've fitted these 450 nanometer phosphor coated LEDs. The phosphor wears off over the years. They become more and more toxic. So they've fitted them that experimental and breach the Nuremberg Code. They've actually said, oh, it's BSI. It's BSI, it's European Union standard, X whatever. It's not. Those standards apply to incandescent light systems, not LEDs. LEDs are port laser. So you're squeezing an electron across a gate which pops off a photon which is extremely bright. They then put a lens on it. It's how they made lasers. It's how they developed lasers. It was a military project. So they could get enough light intensity come popping off that LED, that light emitting diode. That's what it was for.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. Yeah, pretty much everything you're saying is resonating with me, Mark. You know, I've done my research. I've looked into it. You know, there's obviously bits and bobs that are kind of in question. But what I wanted to ask is like, yeah, as you say, it is hard to accept at the end of the day, but you only really, once you are able to kind of see the corruption, pharmaceutical corruption, music industry corruption, Hollywood corruption, police corruption, and you start thinking, hang on a little minute. And then you start looking into history and you're like, anyone who thinks the government are there for our benefit just needs to look a little bit into the history of government, what they've done, and that's just what we know they've done. There's so much hidden history, there's so much falsified history. The point is, in the most recent history, I made a few little notes about the things we do know about what they've done to civilian populations under the guise of military intervention. You know, your Agent Orange, your false wars, your chemical attacks, your weather manipulation. You know, we've seen all this stuff going on. So whilst it is kind of hard to believe, you think, well, if they're doing it to us, they're doing it to everyone. This is what people are kind of justifying. They say with the spraying of the chemical in the sky, they say, well, they're spraying it on themselves as well, which is how they kind of manage the cognitive dissonance. Like I said, I don't really know everything, but I can see it with my own eyes. I can see the agenda. I can see how they're rolling it out. And as they say, the onus of proof of safety, or the burden of safety rather, is on them. It's not on us to prove to them that it is toxic, and you can't prove this. Well, we shouldn't have to be the ones proving that it does this and it does that. They're the ones who should be proving beforehand, without a shadow of a doubt, that this technology is safe. Which I want to circle back around them, because we didn't quite get a chance to answer it earlier. We went on to mainstream media, how it's not to be trusted, which we should all know that by now. If we don't, we're in a bit of trouble. Not to say that there aren't little snippets in there, but that's besides the point. The point I want to make is, you mentioned Denmark, and I wanted to mention Israel, France. Do we have any, and Switzerland, and I think perhaps Sweden, do we have any solid information that you've seen where governments are actually coming out and saying, nope, we're not having this, we're not rolling it out? Or is it all just kind of spurious misinformation and misdirection? Or actually, do we have solid information of people, say, for example, was it Denmark you said have ruled this is dangerous, it's not happening?
There's been a legal ruling in Denmark to say that it's illegal in breach of the Nuremberg Code and a crime against humanity. Right, that's number one. So that's quite an interesting thing. You've got the case going on in the USA about smart. That's very interesting, because obviously you can't produce products that fail standards. These fail the standards. That's impossible to do. So there's obviously, that shows us an agenda to develop a product that will harm. Yeah. So that goes for all your smartwatch, your smart, whatever smart. That proves up what I've always said, what smart really is, the secret militarized armaments and residential technology. Now, the interesting thing about Israel have what's called the Iron Dome. You've heard of the Iron Dome. Well, the Iron Dome's actually 5G. There's a number of cases going on at the minute where troops, where they've been operating with this Iron Dome, have developed cancer and are dying. In fact, the Israeli defense industry did a study in relation to phased arrays, so offset signals are beam waves. It's the same as the Iron Dome's it's a beam wave sweeping radar system which target acquires, and then obviously they can fire a maser or a laser at the missile and possibly take it out the sky. So that is 5G. That's what 5G is for on the battlefield. However, a lot of the troops are developing cancer in Israel from the exposure to the Iron Dome. So there's a legal case going on at the minute. So anybody that tells me that Israel haven't got 5G, I can tell you, well, they do. And unfortunately for the people that live in and around that area and in Palestine as well, they're all being targeted with this similar type of urban environment radar. It's the same stuff they're fitting on the streetlights outside your bedroom window. So we've got this massive sort of misinformation, because I keep hearing it all the time, well, Israelis don't have 5G. Well, I think they had one of the first, well, not one of the first 5G, the first 5G battlefield pieces of equipment was called Mammoth, was 1940s. That was used against Allied aircrew in flying over Germany during the war. That was the first, not the historical, because obviously you can go back quite a little bit further into a lot longer into the history, where you can talk about, you know, the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant was potentially a similar type of weapon system. I mean, the evidence is there, and obviously people have to understand where Hitler got a lot of his secret weapons knowledge from, where a lot of those scientists got their weapons systems knowledge from. It was from a lot of the depictions and a lot of the hardware that was actually found in the Middle East. So it's not to say that we haven't been here once before. You know, I mean, obviously I like to stick to the science and the facts. So the first...
Of course. But so I'm glad you did, actually, Mark, because it's going to come up with chatting with other people who are happy enough, you know, at the end of the day. I've chatted with kind of Dr. Wong, for example, and we go in quite deep to things. So as you say, it's all kind of a little bit of conjecture and all the rest of it. But the point that you raised there by saying those things is what we've been told is the linear timeline of history. And this progression from, you know, rudimentary cavemen to, oh yeah, and then we discover technology and fire. It does seem to be that that's not the case, but that's an aside, you know. But as you say, yeah, we'll stick to the science for this one. But yeah, glad you're on the level with that one.
You know, where's all the fossils? Where's all the fossils? If you know, if it was as Darwin said, you know, if that is exactly what we're playing with here, right? With Darwin's sort of plan, like where's all the fossils? I just say it all the time. Where's all the fossils? The scientific evidence not there. Consequently, it tells you there's something else going on. What that is, we're not really 100% sure, but we're going to always open our mind to the fact that it's something that you know you haven't been told. Anything they tell you in schools is basically a fabrication and a lie. So always take anything that these educators tell you, believers, they've already been educated, indoctrinated. So consequently, anything they say, take it with a pinch of salt, because it's normally not correct. It's obviously and especially from a historical perspective, it's like the professors that tell you there's not enough energy in the non-ionized radiation spectrum. Always gives me a little bit of a tickle. It's an embarrassment to the scientific community for anybody to say that, and also it's an embarrassment when they say that microwave radiation does no harm. That's always a bit of a tickle for me as well, and shows the stupidity and indoctrination of the academic community. I know a lot of academics that do not believe that to be correct, and it is an embarrassment for them in that industry that other academics who get covered on the BBC, I mean, it's like the whole carbon dioxide thing. You get Attenborough, he's just an actor. The guy's an actor, and you've got people, because he's done a few films on a TV, and obviously he's got a nice posh voice, and he speaks off some script. They think that everything that comes out of his mouth's correct. Well, it's not correct at all. In fact, it's total fabrication. The whole CO2 argument's a fabrication. It's like the Extinction Rebellion, and as you said before, these devils or monsters, let's call them monsters. These monsters, what they do, they prey on people's goodwill. You know, it's a bit like cancer research. They prey on people's goodwill, terrify them a little bit. You're going to get cancer, so, get your money sent across. While all they do are basically criminal enterprises, where what they do is they don't even research any cures for cancer. In fact, the cures for cancer have been around for quite a number of years. They don't research any cures. They only look for treatments, because obviously there's money in the treatment, there's no money in the cure. I mean, we've known that for quite a long time, and unfortunately they do prey on people's emotions in goodwill. People generally are very, very nice. The vast majority of the population, I've got no doubt that most of the people who've been hoodwinked into this Extinction Rebellion are good people. However, what they are supporting is the cabal. Exxon was set up by the international banks. The whole CO2 argument is the oil and gas industry. The whole thing is a scam. And obviously they've been sucked into it, and the BBC don't help because they just, you know, I think they've got a bit of a penchant for little kids. That's how they control what's coming out of the BBC. Anybody that doesn't believe that, they only have to go down Oxford Street and look at the statue outside of the BBC's main office, bottom Oxford Street, and it'll show you a statue of a man holding on to a little boy with nothing on. It was sculpted by a known paedophile, Gil, who used to have sex with his kids, his dogs, his pets, his sister, a known paedophile, right? And he was lauded by the great and the good, because obviously they like a little bit of that as well. And consequently, he was the guy that was commissioned to put the sculpture outside of the BBC of this image of a dirty old man hanging on to a little boy with nothing on. And that sculpture's still there, even after all the paedophilia and all the Jimmy Savile cover-up and all the rest of it. I mean, I'm pretty sure the reason why he died quickly was because people were starting to wake up to the fact that he'd been up to no good. Not the only one. And the real people who were behind it, you know, the people who sacked Greg Dyke, who, you know, who discovered that the sexed up document, the Blair sexed up document, I mean, how do you get the BBC, who sacked the sort of the lead guy, the director general at the BBC, gets sacked for doing, because there was a documentary done about a sexed up document, which ended up being true. So the BBC are just a fabricated propaganda machine for the deep state. All they do, deep state narrative. They'll tell you 5G is fantastic, by the way. Head-up display systems, pouring optical radiation at people's eyes in the terahertz range, pulse modulated, by the way, absolutely lethal. And they're taking them to schools to let educators put them on children's heads. If you think microwave radiation is dangerous, I'll tell you now, optical radiation's that plus thousands of times. Pouring it into people's eyes, so we're using a magnifying glass on their retina, not very safe. Putting it onto children's heads should be deemed as a crime, because those children don't have the choice, they don't have the knowledge. I mean, if you're stupid enough to want to wear a gaming headset and burn your eyes out, crack on. It's like alcohol. I don't complain about people smoking. It's your choice, as long as you know, as long as you're given the evidence and you understand what's going on, and that's fine. It's the same as alcohol. I don't have anybody trouble drinking themselves to death if that's their choice, if that's what they want to do. Crack on. It's a free world. But actually putting gaming headsets on children in schools, magnifying glasses. In fact, I've got a box here. This is basically a cardboard box with magnifying glasses in. The screen of your mobile phone's not safe at 200 millimeters from your eye. That's why Samsung have actually got a cut off. As you bring the phone that close, it actually cuts it off. Putting it into that box and using those magnifiers to magnify that radiation into a child's eye is a criminal offence. It's assault.
Is this the equivalent then, Mark, of the Oculus Rifts and these type of technologies?
It's exactly the same technology.
That's interesting. I'm chatting with Carl H. Smith on Thursday. Carl's kind of very deeply into future tech, transhumanism, but he's more into the hyperhumanism. Yeah, he's more into he can see where it's going, and he talks about it in terms of, you know, we've already been zombified by smartphones. We need to be very careful of where it's going. And, you know, he is only one voice in amongst the crowd, you know, with no Silicon Valley, you know, right up there. And let's talk of they've been bought up by the Rothschilds and all that. That's neither here nor there. We know that this stuff is just being bombarded at us left, right, and centre. And this is what needs to be recognised: is the safety features. Prove something. It's about informed consent. People will say to me, you know, a little while back, oh, you follow a vegan diet and this, that, and the other, but yet, you know, you'll drink alcohol. It's like, yeah, but that's my choice. That's my informed consent of, I know alcohol is dangerous, and I'm making a choice that I like to have a drink of alcohol, social lubricant and all that kind of stuff. But it's the same with anything. As you say, it's your own choice in your own body, but it's about the informed consent. When you're drinking Diet Cola, which you think, oh, Diet Cola's good for you because there's no sugar, but in fact it's full of aspartame. You're like, hang on a minute, you sneaky buggers. You know, it's disgraceful. It's disgraceful. Mark, it's been a fantastic first hour, should I say. Should we take a little 5-minute break, brother, and get refreshed, and then we can just finish off? Is that all right?
All right, mate. No bother.
Legend. Thank you, brother. I'll be with you shortly, all right? Cheers, mate. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. With a little break there, but Mark is back with us. And go on, Mark, you had a little thread there to discuss with regards to your friend Lee and, you know, the narrative and whatnot. Go on, as you were.
Well, obviously, Lee's been pushing the boundaries a bit. I've got to be really careful because I do have this injunction. I mean, I pushed the council into a position where they didn't have any choice but to take me to court. The reason I did that was because I knew the publicity we would garner from the court, and we did. It worked out as a treat. I mean, we got that. It was in all the international papers. It hit quite a number of the media in the mainstream, as well as about the court case and about the 5G. Because at the time, nobody knew what 5G was. They just thought it was a telecommunications. And I knew that by force them. I mean, the council at the finish where we are, where a lot of the light systems were being damaged, the transmitters were being smashed off, the boxes were being broken into, they were getting backfilled with concrete. I mean, all sorts of stuff like that going on. And the lighting crews, obviously, because it had a lot of trouble where I live, they were having to come out with police escorts. So the police were escorting them out into the streets. That was all pretty interesting stuff to see. Kids fixing lights. Well, because I know that it's actually a weapon system, and you can see that in the 5G Apocalypse documentary where I'm engaged by a police officer. I'd actually already rang 999 because I wanted the lighting guy arrested for genocide. Obviously, they decided not to come for me, but it did come for me, but not for my phone call. It was them ringing the cops, because obviously the cops just do as they're told. They're part of the corporate structure. They don't understand what I'm talking about, like a lot of other people. However, it is the truth, it is the science, and it's the technicalities of 5G. It is genocide. The interesting thing about Lee came to me in the first instance. His children were bleeding from the nose, and he'd seen some post I'd put up on Facebook about nosebleeds, bad heads. Contacted me. I went to his home. I measured the radiation. It was very high. He didn't believe it. He didn't believe it. I left him. Now, you've got to remember, this is a lad who left school, didn't get any qualifications. I left him with a number of scientific documents. And I mean, he can read. He's not a fool. He's quite a clever lad. Because obviously, like I said, I mean, natural getting O levels and A levels and all the rest of it doesn't account for much if you can't read a scientific paper. Well, unfortunately for Gated Council, he could, and he understood it. And he realised that what I was saying was correct. So he then realised that his children were bleeding from the nose, from the transmitters outside. And that's when he started getting attacked. He contacted the council. He had spies in his bin. He was threatened by the police. He was threatened by social services to take his children away from him. They said, if you tell your children those lights are causing their nosebleeds, we're going to remove them because you're frightening them. I mean, this is the type of bullshit he's had to put up with. He has done more than most men. He's a giant of a man, even though he's a small, quite firm guy.
Big shout out to Lee then. Big shout out to Lee, yeah.
For Lee, we need more Lees. We need more Lees, more kids. I mean, not that you'll get one like him because he's, you know what I mean, he's unique. However,
yes, indeed.
We need more people of that ilk, like Craig. Like there's guys in London. There's some guys I spoke to last night. I'm not going to mention their name, but I mean, there's a few guys now starting to pop up, and women as well. Laura and others are starting to pop up around the country where they're starting to take action, and they need to take action. What I'm going to say to people, I spoke to a scientist a while ago, and she said to me, "You're just too offensive." And I said, "Well, what do you mean I'm too offensive?" She says, "Well, you're offensive. You're loud. You're big. You're you're aggressive. You've got this sort of offensive attitude." She said, "I mean, it's appalling." I said, "You know what?" I said, "You just give me the greatest compliment." I says, "I'm an offensive weapons expert." I says, "And that's a compliment, believers." I said, "So I'm quite happy that you said that." I says, "I don't take it in a derogatory way at all." And this is the problem that we have, you know. If you speak out, if you shout, if you're loud, if you're big, if you're tall, anything that comes with being part of mankind, if you stand your ground, you're aggressive. If you have something to say for yourself, you're over the top. This thing's been bred into people. It's a lie. It's part of the CO2 fabrication by the BBC. All we've got to do is we've got to talk with little voices like that. And, oh, I'm sorry. Did I say something there? Oh, I'm terribly sorry. It's bullshit. These lot are trying to kill you. They've been planning this for thousands of years. And this is the time to stand up. This isn't the time to sit down. This isn't the time to be quiet. This is the time for the resistance. This is the time to fight back or die. You've got a choice. It's quite simple. Sit back and die, or join the resistance and win. We win this. People have to understand all that evil, all that wrongdoing, all that illegal activity, right, that's been perpetrated on mankind for thousands of years. This is our time to win. But we've got to wake up. We've got to wake up. We've got to wake up enough people who've got the balls, and I'm talking about the girls as well here, by the way, who've got the balls to fight back.
A lot of the girls I know have got bigger balls than any of the men I know, so you make a fair point there, Mark. You make a fair point.
We've got loads of them, like little terriers.
Good women, good strong women, you know, divine feminine and all that kind of stuff. I like
it. Power. We don't want the little mealy mouth, the little kids that go and do as they're told. You know, I talk about this all the time. We've ended up in a society where kids go to school, buy the teacher an apple. Yes, miss, no, miss. They're brainwashing them. Do as you're told. Get your homework done. You'll do okay. What's actually happened? They've robbed them of they've robbed them of their freedom. They've robbed them of their mind. They've indoctrinated the do as they're told. We're not on this planet to do as we're told. We're never on this planet to do as we're told. And what's going to happen? You're going to do as you're told till they kill you with 5G, because 5G is a weapon system being rolled out on top of you. It's a compartmentalized. One of the things that I came across with 5G and the rollout, and obviously some of the technologists, they've all got little bits in it. And I developed a weapon system long time ago. It was a target aquarium rig for a torpedo, for a subsea torpedo. And I was given a bit of wood, 22-inch diameter. Guy goes, right, we need that to fit on that. It's got to do this, and this, right? I went, all right. I wonder what it is. I'm thinking this is like a missile or something, but I just, you know, and then all of a sudden, BEA Marconi, that shows you how long ago it was, BEA Marconi pull up with a big couple of trucks, take the tarpaulin off. Well, unfortunately, I'd been given this bit of wood to build this rig so we could test this piece of equipment subsea. And obviously, I went and deployed it subsea so I could see what it was with torpedo. And it was a laser-guided torpedo piece of equipment. So anyway, we took that offshore, tested it subsea, and so I actually saw the meat and potatoes. But what it shows you, what actually happens in the weapon systems developments, and I've seen this with 5G, they get one guy makes that bit, another guy does that bit, another guy makes the antenna, another guy's doing the software and the programming, and it's for autonomous vehicles. Well, you know what autonomous vehicles? You have to shoot the signal at them. You have to focus it. That's why the 5G antennas on top of the street lights, or have got a dielectric or a dielectric lens where it allows you to focus a signal directly at a target. Well, that's the thing that shoots you. All right? That's what 5G is. So that's the narrative that the technologists have been told is for this autonomous cars. Now, I'm not saying that autonomous cars aren't going to come, but I'll tell you now, by the time they do, you'll all be dead. Because 5G is here to kill in all its technical parameters, densification, the antenna design, the waveforms are all there to kill. That's what they are. So everything that's about 5G, 5G is not for your mobile communication system. That is just a masquerade. It is a weapon system, well proven up piece of hardware on the battlefield. It's here to kill.
Thank you, Mark. An interesting, excuse me, An interesting point that you mentioned in one of your videos the other day was that, as you say, it's about different people waking up to the issue and becoming aware of the situation. But what you've been finding is that the wealthy are being targeted, as we know. And Ray Broomhall, who's an Australian fellow, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Ray, he was doing a bit of work with, or a bit of conversation rather, with Max Egan, who I chatted to for the premiere. And I think the situation was essentially they were starting to roll out these 5G transmitters in a bit more of an upper class neighborhood, then, if you like, lots of you know, doctors, lawyers, all that kind of jazz. And they were like, well, we don't want this, we don't want this. And he's like, yeah, neither does anyone else. But it's only people like you guys who need to stand up in the court as medical experts and say, you know, this is my testimony as an individual. That's an aside, you know, and everyone, if anybody wants to check out Ray Broomhall's work, from what I'm seeing is the narrative that he's discovered is that you prosecute the individual on an individual basis for electromagnetic assault, essentially. It's assault by any other kind of description. Someone comes and slaps you in the street, they can get arrested. It's exactly the same thing. You're under this electromagnetic assault. So that was interesting. But what I liked, we were talking about the, I'm not sure if you're allowed to, if you want to talk about it in a bit more depth. The Russian fella up in London, I think it was a fella, was spending an exorbitant amount of money painting his home with electromagnetic resistant materials. That's all good and well if you're an oligarch and you can afford to paint your house. It's not really going to help the problem, though, is it?
It's not going to help the problem. So there are mitigating technologies. I know of them. There's wave cancellation technologies. There's one type of technologies. There's some things that I know all about that can mitigate this type of radiation. However, it's not the key. The key to 5G. 5G is the best opportunity we will ever have to turn over the controllers, because they have overstepped the mark. And unfortunately for them, they roll it out on top of me in Gateshead, and I made a fuss about it because I'm pretty offensive. I will not sit back and let somebody come and try and murder me or my family, my countrymen, women or children. So I made a bit of a fuss. I told them I was going to make a bit of a fuss, and that's exactly what I've done. So consequently, that information is now in the public domain. Everybody now, anybody who does any research at all into 5G will find out pretty quickly that it is in fact a weapon system, and then it's up to them to then do something about it. It's not up to me to do something about it, it's up to them. Ray had actually watched a number of my videos where I talked about the assault. Unfortunately, in this country, it is the focus on a microwave radiation at a person is assault. If I fire a laser at you, 5 milliwatt laser at you, that will be classed as assault. So I can fire a laser at you. If I fire a maser at you, that's also assault, and that's what they're putting on the top of those streetlights.
And you're talking about there, Mark, are you just the little laser pens, the novelty laser pens, right? You shine one of them at a police helicopter, and you'll know all about it. You'll all be getting kicked off, and you'll be swatted away. So, yeah, you know, you make a fair point there, and it is relevant.
I made that, and obviously Ray's done quite well. And like as you said, it is interesting that it wasn't until they put these transmitters in a very affluent area. But what I'm going to say to people,
yes, indeed,
Monaco is one of the target areas where some of the wealthiest wealth generators and wealthiest people in the world go off to die, go off to hide with their cash. Switzerland is near 80% densification with 5G. I know some very wealthy people in Switzerland, believers they're going to die. So Switzerland, Monaco, the only places where we've heard in the mainstream media where they're not rolling it out is Belgium, some of the cantons in Rome, and some of the cantons in Switzerland. But whether that's true or not, I don't know, because I'm being here. What I do know, there was a lot of information out about Israel didn't have it. It's bullshit, because what I do them, that's 5G. And I already know that there's a significant number of people, there's a number of Israeli troops who are suing the government as we speak for them developing cancers from this technology. So it's not as if it's not there. It is, and I've also seen evidence of other equipment, other interrogating, so basically street interrogation equipment in Israel. You'd expect it, because obviously they've got a few issues over there. Facial recognition systems, that's a scanner, that'll kill you. You know, we've got the London transport police rolling out this technology. They're going to scan you in case you've got a knife in you. Well, I'll tell you now, you know those scanners, they'll kill tens of thousands from cancer. How many people are being stabbed to death in London? because those scanners will kill a lot more, I can guarantee you. Facial recognition, if you haven't got protective eyewear on, it's going into your eye, it's radiation. It's a scanner. They're focusing a 5G scanner at your face so they can actually take a reflection from your face. It's going into your eye. Now, if it's at a higher frequency, it'll be dangerous to the skin, probably cause skin cancer, but it's going into your eye. Central nervous system cancer. So anybody that wants to go to London and get your face recognised, make sure you've got your protective eyewear. I want to see more people wearing these, mirror lensed, get them anywhere, TTA Max, not expensive, mirror lenses to protect themselves. So when I'm walking down the street, I see people with mirror lenses and I think, they've woken up. You know, it's a bit like the Matrix, isn't it? Everybody's starting to wear protective eyewear because the controllers, believers, they want to kill you.
That's an interesting point you make there, because I've stopped wearing shades probably within the last year. The reason being is it's a completely different thread, but it's on the point of, you know, they tell us that suntan lotion is to protect us from the sun. We've pretty much established that's a load of rubbish. If anything, these lotions are supposedly causing skin cancer, right? Okay, yeah. The whole thing of shades, as they're saying, we've been tricked into wearing shades. Obviously, it's, you know, for driving and all the rest, and fashion, I get all that. But it was and it was only a meme. I've not done any deep research into it, but it made sense to me that by wearing sunglasses, you're stopping the rays from the actual sun getting into the body and preparing the hormonal systems essentially for the sun to go on the skin and then release vitamin D. So I've got two conflicting threads in my mind here, Mark. I've got that element of it, and I've obviously got what you're saying. So for me personally then, would I say probably if you are in built-up cities or you're in built-up areas where this technology is known to be used, when you're out in nature and you're out walking in the fields, up the mountains, then don't wear them, because I said I don't want to give anybody conflicting information. Only based on, like I said, this is only my journey, Mark. I'm sharing my journey with people who I know and everything. And every day is a school day, you know. Yeah,
I'll cover that one off. When I get up in the morning, I allow the full light to enter my eye. Coffee as the sun's breaking over the horizon. Full copy, glasses is off, I'm letting the full beam come to the eye. Same at the night time, starts to go down the other side, I'll be out, sun in my eyes, on my skin, in my face, because you've got retinal cells in your skin, you've got retina cells on your retina, all that needs natural light. I always do that, you know, so I'm absolutely 100% behind you in what you're saying.
Brilliant,
however,
thank you.
The toxicity, the microwave radiation,
yeah.
that sun gets a little bit higher. The glasses is back on, and I'm thinking, yeah. So you're right what you're saying. That is correct, by the way. Absolutely, you do need direct sunlight catching your eye, but only at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. Your retinal cells in your skin will pick enough light up for vitamin D production from the sun. I mean, obviously in the winter you don't, so take vitamin supplements. Obviously, that's, you know, that's a given. But in the summer, get as much sun as you can. But you've got to be mindful of the microwave radiation and the build-up. You see, and that's the whole point of 5G. 5G means densification. It's so that technopromet, they want more. They want transmitters on every light down the street. They want transmitters. So you've got scanners on the lights. You've got scanners going into transport. You've got scanners on the cars. You've got scanners. They just want that much radiation in the environment, right? And then what happens? They pull an EMP, boof, everything's gone. The real plan is to pull electromagnetic pulse weapon system. I know, because obviously I've worked on these things before. I understand the size of the densification and the equipment that I've been. I mean, we've got these 3,300 watt relays with 450 volt capacity, and each light I've got 31,875 in Gateshead. Now I know you do not need that type of power capacity to turn a light on and off. So it's got to be for something else. Consequently, if you look at the whole smart, they have just been shown to produce over 500% increase in the 1.6 watts per kilo. I'm going to tell you, every other smart device in your home is the same. Your smart meter, a lot more than that. They built a kill. So you've got your smart meter, your smartphone, your smart fridge, your smart TV. I broke a TV the other day. I went to buy one without any smart on, can't buy one, told the kid to stick it up his arse. I don't want it. I do not want a TV that's got any way to be connected to the internet, because they can be connected remotely. They can come in and switch them on remotely, and then they can turn them up remotely. So can you imagine? You've got about 50 or 60 devices in your home. I come in remotely, I turn them all on, I turn them all up while you're in bed, asleep at night, right? So I've got you cooking nicely. I've got that vibration, because microwave radiation pulse modulated is actually vibration. It's energy in air vibrating. So basically stopping all those cells in your body. And then all of a sudden I fire an EMP, boof, the house goes, you go, there's nothing left of you. I've turned you to dust. And that's what the connection is with chemtrails. Because chemtrails have got nanoparticle metals in them. They travel into your skin. Aluminium. I'm not going to suggest anybody do this. Go and watch a video of somebody doing it on YouTube. Put a bit of aluminium foil in a microwave oven and see what happens. If I fill you full aluminium, now somebody's decided that what they want to do is turn this earth to hell. Turn it into a fireball. That's what the plan is. And the problem that they've got, we're too early. We've discovered it too early. And the information that's coming out of here, the truth that's coming out of my mouth, it's called the sword, truth and light, right? It's called the sword. It's in the prophecy. And the problem that they've got, we're too early. We're probably 3 or 4 years far too early for them. And that's the reason why the controllers are going around trying to stop us going to areas to talk. They don't want that information getting out into people's ears where they can then assess it and start doing something about it. So they've got to stop that. So anybody stopping it, want a little message for you. We win this. You spend the rest of your life in prison. Because believe us, we do win this. I know, because I've seen the prophecy. We win this, you lose, and you spend the rest of your life. So just be careful about the things that you say today, because it's going to come back on people and bite them. And there's a few, I've already got them in my sights, and I don't forgive. I do not forgive, because we've had children murdered in Gateshead, murdered. And the reason why they were murdered, right, is because there's a number of people who work for the state apparatus, right, who've decided that what we don't have in Gateshead is 5G. Obviously working for Gateshead Council, because they don't say we've got 5G either, even though it was proven in a court that would do.
Yes, thank you, Mark. We've been discussing this. In fact, the whole, you know, we've got, as we say, a cabal, whatever you want to call it, a network of people who are not working in the interests of the collective. And I think it's no good threatening, you know, death and destruction upon them, hanging them from lampposts or any of this kind of stuff. It doesn't, you know what I mean? That is kind of, and I understand it. Of course I do. I'm going to be chatting with John Wedger tomorrow, and he talks about these awesome detectives who, you know, spend their time having to sift through all that disgusting evidence. And they do. They have to watch hours and hours and hours. It takes some kind of human being to be able to do that. And he said, when you chat with these people, you understand them when they say, bring back corporal punishment and hang on. I understand it. Of course I do. But as you say, all the facilities are there. They just need to be repurposed, restructured. Prison's been one of the main ones. There's so many people I met in prison for victimless crimes. There's no way they should have been locked up in jail, but yet they were. Let's get the real people locked up, and let's get a bit of decorum on the go here. Mark, it's been a fantastic chat, brother. Thank you very much indeed. Did you want to round off to anything to finish off, or do you want to tell people what you've got coming up? There's some talks in the near future.
A couple of things I'd like people to say. We need to focus. We need people to get organised and get active. I would suggest to them all, have a look at the Saveusnow movement. It's something the controllers are absolutely devastated about, all right? Because what it does, it gives a banner. It gives us a flag. It gives people something. Maybe, you know, a lot of people probably don't like to go for that type of thing. Unfortunately, the structures we're up against, we'll have to get behind some type of structure. We've got to support the people who want to do the right thing. You mentioned a chap before, Stansfield, doing the right thing. We need to be able to support him. We need to support him in numbers.
Yes,
You know,
I agree.
there's nothing wrong with having a loose collective, right? But when I say to people, we need to be at a court. When I go to court, when I was in court the last time, there was 150 people there. Couldn't get them all in the court. Next time I go to court, I want 1,000 people on that key side in Newcastle, and
Yeah.
that's what we need to do. We need to turn up in numbers because the controller can't control it.
That's it.
It's all about numbers. It pours over the top of their ability to control it. And not only that, 5G police officers who currently have tetra strapped to their neck, giving them cancer. When I overlay that, that's a linear exposure from that transmitter. When I overlay that with 5G, it'll smash these cells to pieces. So you see coppers that are walking around the streets, feel sorry for them. A lot of people might not want to feel sorry for them. I don't believe anybody deserves to develop cancer and die a horrible death.
No.
They've got transmitters strapped them, right? By the time I come in with 5G non-linear radiation emission on top of the tetra that they've got strapped to that body, so anybody in the 99 services, it'll kill them. And they'll die a horrible death. Nobody deserves that, right? And maybe one or two. We might think about it later.
No, you make a serious point there, Mark, and it's nice to finish off on that because it is about unity, it is about raising awareness, it is about getting us all together. I'll be posting all your links to the 5G documentary, and if you've got any other stuff coming up, I can put that into the description box. And what I'll also do, Mark, is ask if anyone's got any legitimate questions. Trolls need not apply, you know, we've dealt with all that, but if people do have legitimate concerns and questions, I'll compile them. You and I can catch up again in the near future, and we can follow on a nice little thread if that sounds all right with yourself.
Absolutely, no problem at all. I'm here to be shot at. You know, I've got nothing to hide.
Indeed.
What comes out of it is the truth. I mean, some people find it really unpalatable, and you know, I get that. I get it.
Yeah,
but that doesn't mean to say that it's not true.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it is true. I wish it wasn't. I really do. You know, wish that the things that come out of my mouth weren't true and I was just making the whole thing up. Unfortunately, it is true. And we do need to act. People need to get unified. Save us now. What I'm going to say to people in Wales, get organised. Your political corrupted system is that. It is only a smokescreen. It is totally corrupted. The Save Us Now is all about the rule of law. Now, the law is quite interesting, right? The law and the constitution and the common law, the constitution, the British constitution is all predicated on the betterment of mankind. We have to bring that back. We have to get rid of the corruption. Obviously, we've got a good system there. It just needs to be upheld.
This is it, yeah. That keeps coming up often as well. There's no need to change a lot of the stuff. It's already in place. It's just being bastardized, unfortunately, forgive my French, and used for nefarious purposes. But
the whole thing all boils down to one thing: corruption. It is being corrupted. The system is being corrupted. It's being corrupted deliberately. Still lots of good people in these organisations. However, they've been corrupted, right? That organisation's been corrupt because the people at the very, very top, here's a little thing for you. Scientific fact, scum always rises to the top. It's a scientific fact. Consequently, what happens? The controllers, scum. What we need to do is get rid of them, right? We do that because 5G, they've overstepped the mark. 5G is the key.
Brilliant. Mark, that's a lovely way to end the talk there, brother. And like I said, we will catch up again in the very near future. All the best with what you're doing. Keep your ear to the ground for us and stay strong and stay safe, brother. Take care and we'll catch up again soon.
All right. Thanks for that.
All the best. Take care.